Your Excellency, President Ursula von der Leyen, fellow heads of state and government from Africa, especially President Lorenzo, the chairperson of the African Union, leaders from Latin America and the Caribbean and Europe, and honorable ministers and distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting South Africa to this Global Gateway Forum. It is indeed a privilege for me to address this forum, which brings together partners to strengthen cooperation and to advance shared priorities and to find solutions to the pressing challenges that the world is facing. President von der Leyen, you said that there are 150 companies represented here present. You didn't have to tell me that there are 150 of them. Just as I walked in, I could smell money. As I saw the president of the World Bank, I could touch money. And as I greeted you and President Lorenzo, I could touch power in your hands, both of you as leaders of the EU and Africa. But as I encountered President Tshisekedi and President Kagame, whom I'm sitting next to, I could feel the energy for making peace. So I'm in a good place. So it's not only a privilege to be here, it's an absolute joy. I have a galaxy of so many people who have so much impact and influence on the affairs of the world and my beloved continent, Africa. This forum is taking place at a time of geopolitical uncertainty and instability that is negatively impacting on security and economic growth in many parts of the world. These circumstances that the world faces now require comprehensive, coordinated, and forward-looking solutions. And these challenges, in fact, call for a renewed commitment to the peaceful resolution of conflict, respect for international law, the strengthening of multilateralism, and the progressive reform of international bodies like the United Nations and the WTO. With my sister, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations here, it confirms that the UN plays a critical role globally, and that role needs to be affirmed. As a country, we welcome the opportunity to participate in this forum. The strategic partnership between South Africa and the EU has evolved in scope and substance over the years. The South Africa-EU Summit in Cape Town earlier this year reaffirmed our shared values and further deepened the cooperation between South Africa and the EU, but more broadly, also the relationship between Africa and the EU. Together, we have an opportunity to strengthen resilience by advancing investments in digital and green infrastructure, in trade infrastructure, as President Lorenzo was saying about the Lobito Corridor, fostering innovation, securing supply chains, and encouraging diversification that supports sustainable and inclusive growth. We welcome the support this partnership provides to the development of transport networks, a just transition and climate resilience, pandemic preparedness on the health side, and vaccine production and digital connectivity. As we work to strengthen trade and investment ties, we must also address those issues that hold back more robust, more diverse, and more impactful trade and investment between the African and European countries. We need to work together to overcome the tariff and non-tariff barriers that constrain the breadth and the scale of African exports to the European Union. We must use investment and trade as effective tools and instruments to foster industrialization on the African continent. The Global Gateway, therefore, provides an opportunity to support the priorities that countries have themselves identified, as you have suggested, President van der Leyen, and priorities that they are seeking to pursue. South Africa has embarked on a just transition that advances renewable energy while safeguarding energy security and enabling social and economic development. We are using our natural resources or endowments, such as solar, wind, and our critical minerals, to build industries that will grow our economy. As South Africa, we are undertaking far-reaching economic reforms in energy, where we were challenged for quite a number of years, in water, in logistics, repositioning our harbors and our ports and our roads. We're focusing on telecommunications, and these are making our country more competitive and improving the investment environment. As a country, we are undertaking a massive infrastructure investment drive to expand the capacity of our economy and to meet the developmental needs of our people. Now, as a continent, Africa is striving for universal access to energy through diversification, equitable finance, and technology transfer. Now, the support from the EU and its member states will play an important role in this journey. And this is where we want to be partners. It is important that the substantial investments that are being made through the Global Gateway are structured in a manner that empowers African countries, and may I add, countries in the Global South. And these investments should not replace one dependency with another. They must be truly transformational and empowering. They must enable African countries and countries in the Global South to pursue development paths that are suited to their circumstances and the needs of their people. As we all know, South Africa is hosting the G20 Leaders Summit next month under the theme Solidarity, Equality, and Sustainability. And this theme was chosen very carefully, and it was aimed at addressing the challenges that the world is facing now with regard to solidarity, where we should all act together, the strong supporting the weak, the rich giving and lending support to the poor, the healthy supporting the unhealthy. That is the meaning of solidarity. And we also said that there should be equality. The world needs more equality and inclusion rather than leaving others behind. But we also need sustainable development and transformation. With around 100 of the 132 official meetings having been held since we took over the presidency of the G20 from Brazil, South Africa is well on its way in preparations towards hosting what I would call a very successful G20 summit for the first time on African soil. We welcome the support of the European Union and other countries for our G20 priorities to address the many challenges that developing economy countries are facing. Many developing economy countries face unsustainable debt burdens. A key issue for the G20 must be to develop solutions to address the debt burden that holds back the growth and the development of many of those countries, especially in Africa and in the global south. We need further measures to ensure that there is fair and equitable access to finance and debt sustainability so that these countries can meet the needs of their people and realize their potential. It is, in my view, simply unacceptable that many developing economy countries pay much more for their debt than what more developed economy countries pay. This unfair treatment perpetuates inequality, not only between individuals, but amongst countries as well. And it is for this reason that South Africa has set up a G20 Extraordinary Committee of Independent Experts on Global Wealth Inequality, which is led by a Nobel laureate, Professor Joseph Stiglitz, to table a report at the G20 Leaders Summit on the issue of inequality. We now need to confront inequality and find ways of addressing it, for the world cannot continue with one part of the world being much better off and the other part being unequal. We must build consensus on the reform of international financial institutions, particularly the multilateral development banks, to better tackle global challenges. We have recognized the need to massively increase support for climate action in the global south and for reconstruction in the aftermath of extreme weather events. Greater support needs to be given to developing economy countries through climate finance, and the commitments that have been made need to be met. We're also calling for stronger action against predatory mining practices and for management of critical minerals. Countries that are endowed with critical minerals require that value addition should happen at source rather than continue with the practice of extracting, exporting rock, soil, and dust to more developed economy countries. We need those resources to be developed at source so that the people of those countries must benefit. And that is the fairer way of development. We are focusing on strengthening the multilateral trading system while recognizing that the WTO remains the only multilateral body capable of managing divergences and coordinating positions in global trade, so that things like tariffs should not be weaponized. They should be properly regulated through the WTO system. We remain committed to working closely with the EU to ensure that our shared ambitions translate into tangible outcomes. I do believe that together we can foster inclusive growth, we can build resilience, and we can create a sustainable and secure future for all our people. Working together with the private sector, with state agencies, development banks or financing institutions, and various other stakeholders, the world will be a much better place. And I do believe we should get on with it. Thank you.